nasty people who are trying to do such unnatural things with their body. And I really think that goes way more so for the girls than the guys. Because it's half beauty competition for the women as well. Like, they'll have their hair, like, all crazy, and they'll have, like, makeup and fake tits everywhere. And there'd be like smears of like handprints on the walls and stuff, and there'd be like brown construction paper like taped up over the floor so we don't like mess up the floor. And so we got there and we're waiting for the first class to start, and Tom and I put on next coat of Dream Tan and get myself darker, and I'm looking a little ridiculous at this point. And I do the final things, like have a full sugar soda and just final carb up things to fill your muscles up and facilitate the pump. And as we were waiting for the first class to start, there wasn't like a big announcement on the loudspeaker or anything, and I think people were kind of just supposed to know what was going on, and so I was kind of hanging back with Josh and Kevin as they were getting ready, and I asked them, when should I go backstage and start pumping up, and then like one of them like reassured me or something, and then the other one was like, wait, why isn't he backstage pumping up right now? And I was like, I look at them like, converse between themselves, and then he like opens the door and looks, and they're like already lining up, and like he's like, you better go out there, and I was like, what is your problem? So I go out there, and like we're just about to go on stage, and so I'm like, I start just doing push-ups, like all I can do is push-ups, and I'm like holding my wrist down and trying to like do bicep curls against like the force of my other hand. And then the same with my triceps, and just anything I can do. So the first class goes out, and that was the Bodybuilding 101 class, which was the criteria is that you've never done a competition at all before. There's only 7 guys out there, all different ages. Like there's like one a couple years younger than me, and then there's a guy in his like 50s or 60s, maybe he just looked older than he was. And but so we went out there, and I was with all intents and purposes I was cold, just completely unpumped, and so posed and stuff and did the thing, and did the mandatory poses, and it was the first time that I'd been on the stage doing this officially, so there was a few mistakes that I'd made in terms of like keeping my legs flexed or this or that, and I was just kind of making note of the environment as I was doing this. So that class didn't last very long, and sometimes a class that's tough to judge lasts a really long time. Like they'll have you out there for like 10 minutes or something, all throwing different poses and whatever, and holding like full body contractions in these poses is very, very difficult. Especially when you want to die, in terms of your nutrition. And the fact that you haven't had water in 3 days. So we came off stage, and I was like, alright, that was okay. I mean, that class doesn't really matter, but got some experience right there. So I had 2 more classes to do, and I was trying to figure out when the next one would go on, and I started pumping up like a half hour before, and they had these weights backstage, but they were like these garbage weights. They had like a single bench. They had these tiny dumbbells that were like those dumbbells that they use in aerobics classes that are covered in rubber or whatever, that are like colored, the pink dumbbells. And they had like a single bench, and they had these barbells attached to sand-filled weights were like concrete filled weights, the plastic ones. And I was like, this is what you like, really? What? So I was a little disappointed at this. And but so I made do, and I would go through like circuits of doing rows and press this, and doing things for my shoulders, and it starts to get, after you feel like you're not sure that you can pump up really anymore, like you're already like sufficiently pumped up, but there's still some time before the class goes on. It's you kind of freak out a little bit. You're like, oh, just do more. Maybe I can get bigger, like right now. Just whatever you can do, and then the moments while you're waiting, while you're lining up on stage before they send you out, you're freaking out. You're like, I'm losing blood right now. I need to like get down and do push-ups. And some of the kids, like the people who were like younger, like there's like a 16 and a 15-year-old kid there. They'd just be doing push-ups like the whole time. They'd be like frantic. And this was around the time, when I'd start really seeing the other guys there, and the one who ended up winning the show, I was like, oh god, that guy's big. And then there's a couple other guys who kind of looked like the natural pro at my gym, and I was like, these guys are very large men, and I don't feel very big right now. So, it's hard not to like size up your competition as you look at everyone, because they're kind of on display. They're walking around in their underpants, and you get to see like, all right, how fat is this guy? How lean is this guy? How monstrous is this guy? And actually, when that first bodybuilding 101 class went on, there was this one guy who was taller than everyone. He was this black dude who was, I think he was like my age, or I think he was 2 years younger or something. It was something that made me angry. I think he was 17, and he had these dreads, and he was tall, and he was huge. And I was like, this isn't even fair. And in the pictures, like, his bicep is the size of my head. And I'm just, this isn't even fair. And it was his first time ever doing a show. It's not even funny. So I was waiting up for the next show, which was the juniors, which is people under 23, I believe it was. And one of the guys from the Bodybuilding 101 class was in it, and this other guy. And so there's only 3 of us, which I thought was stupid. So we went out there and we were posing, and then the judges told us to like move around a little bit, and they sent me to the middle, and I was like, uh-oh, middle means I win, so, so I was doing my little posing thing and making sure that it was like tight this time, because I was a little upset about how it was the previous class. So then we went off and then waited for the final one that I was in, and in between each one, I'd go back into the audience, which felt weird because I was just like wearing underpants, not even, and like sandals, and I was this brown man. And then I'd go find Tom, and he would be in the audience with his camera, taking these pictures that are horribly out of focus. And I'd look at them and just get a feel for what the other guys looked like and what I looked like on stage, and would watch the other people who were going on and such, and get some feedback from Josh and Kevin if they were in the audience, because I remember Josh each time told me some things, and so I was waiting for the last one to go on, and backstage Kevin had this cheesecake that one of the guys from our gym made. This cheesecake was nice. So it was just in this foil, right? Like this foil that you open up, and we were just like scooping it out with our hands, just like eating it. Like, oh god, that's such a good cheesecake. So I was waiting to. Oh, and I didn't have any food, so I had the one power bar, the one protein bar, which was a Metrex Big 100 cookie dough. Disgusting, like barf. And then I told Tom, I was like, yo, go get me a Milky Way from the vending machine. And I bit into this Milky Way, and I was like, I don't even remember Milky Way being this good. Because you get used to protein bars after a while. Protein bars are kind of hard because they're so dense. And this Milky Way was so soft and so sweet, but not bad sweet. It was just awesome all around. And so that's what I ate that day. A Milky Way and a Big 100 bar. And because you gotta get that protein in there, otherwise you might die. So I was waiting for the last class to go on, and we were watching the other ones, and then the women's bodybuilding went out, and there was this like little girl who we were just talking to. She was really cool. She was just finishing up like a kinesiology degree or something, and trying to take a test for the CSCS or something. And she was really, really small, but she was really, really lean, and her posing was like perfect. And because we were back like behind the stage off to the side, like we could see her, face. We were like watching her from the side, and so every time she would turn and like hit a pose, it looked like a string was like loose, and then would like tighten up as she would like it's really cool. And she had her posing together, so she ended up winning that whole thing, so that's pretty cool. So my class went on, and it was 9 guys, and as I like got in line, I was like sizing each of them up. I was like, all right, I can beat you. You're done. You shouldn't even be here. I got like ridiculous. Like all of a sudden, it was kind of weird because early, around the time of when the first class went on, I was like, kind of evaluating what I thought of the bodybuilding competition, and I was like, I've wanted to do this for so long, and now that I'm here, I don't know if I like this, because I like, especially like looking at the women, I was like, this is just gross. And when you can see them up close, you can see the skin hanging on their stomachs, like when a fat person loses all his weight and it's just skin hanging, and you can see the stretch marks and like all these imperfections, and the way when you have too much skin, how your belly button isn't tight. And I was just like, this is all just gross, because this is stuff that you can't see like in the pictures and such, especially since it's the local amateur level. So I was a little grossed out by this whole thing, and I kind of was beginning to separate myself from it during the day, but I started to get back into it again by the time my third class went on, the lightweight novice. So there was these 9 guys, and I like looked at each one. I was like, all right, you're done. I'm gonna beat you, and you shall bow before me. And I got like real competitive, which is just funny because I've never been like that before, since I was never in sports or had that in me. So now it was coming out, and so I had taken the advice that Josh in particular had given me in between each of the last ones, because there was a few things posing wise that I didn't do properly. Like when you hit like the side pose, you don't look at the judges, like you look straight ahead, so off to the side. So I had that together, and I felt good about the last one, and